Welcome back to the Livable Law Method. Let's talk about the drafting process in the management of things. First, let's start with the concept that never in your life shall you ever have a local copy of anything ever again, and certainly you will not let anybody in your team ever have a local copy of anything ever again. Okay? Great. I totally don't take this seriously. I take it very seriously. Why no local copies? First, for purposes of preservation. There's two aspects to this. First, if they have a copy of a document and it's not on the cloud, nobody has it. They do, but they're one person. Importantly, if that computer gets lost or stolen or broken, if the hard drive just fries, you've lost everything. There's also a cybersecurity aspect to this. If copies are local, you cannot wipe it remotely. It's really hard to do. If copies are on the cloud and a device gets lost, you just block access. And there's nothing left on that device to be accessed. So that's an important part of it. Also, you don't want any bottlenecks. I know this was a while back, but the number of times that we were waiting on somebody to send a version of something that they had on their computer and they were traveling or in the car or somewhere else, it's just stressful for them and it's stressful for you. You don't want somebody to be a bottleneck because the information is not available. Have cloud copies of everything. And then you want to make sure your team is always working on a live version. And the only way to guarantee that is by having a cloud copy, because then everybody's working off the cloud copy. And as long as syncing is working, as long as it's synchronizing, then you won't have the issue of somebody working on a copy for half a day only to realize that somebody else also had a local copy and that's what they've been working off of. That's a nightmare and it's wasteful and exhausting. Which brings me to version control. Really, really important. So document version control, according to the Girls Guide to PM, and I love this website, document version control is the process of tracking and managing different versions or drafts of a document so you know which is the current iteration of a file. And that seems like a simple concept, but in practice, things get a little murky. In practice, nothing will ever roll downhill again. You know what rolls downhill, right? Yeah. So when I was an attorney, I stopped allowing people who could not properly version control to foist that onto other people on the team. If they caused a snafu with version control, they had to fix it, and they were the ones that had to incorporate whatever edits into the correct version so that we were all working off the correct document. You should number the versions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is also only going to be enforced if there are standard operating procedures about version control and standardized naming conventions. You know this by now. We're going to talk about how to name files. It's a big thing. That's how you manage things. You name them correctly. So here are some examples of versioning your documents. Smith response to motion MTD _1_2_3. That's perfectly good. You can have V1, V2, V3. That's fine. First draft, second draft, third draft. I don't really care which one you pick, but pick one, stick to it, and make sure everybody on your team does the same thing. That's really critical. You do not want a partner, an associate, and a paralegal working on 3 different versions of a document. It is awful. It creates so much tension, so much ill will, so much angst, so much misery. No more. The Livable Law Method has 10 principles, and I share them as we go over the courses. And one of them is that templates save time and sanity. So I strongly encourage you to use templates, and I strongly encourage you to create checklists for all of the portions that need to exist in a document so that you don't have to receive a draft only to find out that it's missing something really simple like a certificate of service, which happened to me many times when I was supervising attorneys. So what do these templates look like? Here are some examples, and I'm going to include them in your materials for this course. This is just a simple little list I have, but if you don't have it, rip it off me and start using it from now on. You want to make sure that everybody knows what every document looks like so that they're all standardized. It cuts down on editing time and it also makes the workflow a lot easier. I'll give you a good example. I spend a lot of time talking about, manage the editing workflow when I talk about the management of time and the management of tasks. And one part of it is that if I know I'm going to get a document to revise, I will just, tell myself, okay, well, I'll block schedule 2 or 3 hours. If it arrives to me and it is not ready and there's some basic issues, either I have to edit those, which I shouldn't because it's a waste of my time and the person won't learn how to do it correctly, or I send it back and then I've lost that 2-hour block, which I now have to use for something else. And I don't know if I'll have that 2-hour block again. So it's really important that documents have certain pieces to them. And if you can do that ahead of time, ensure that ahead of time, you should. So for motion, you will have a caption, a title. If they're more complex motions, like responses to motion for summary judgments or summary judgment, you're going to be looking for a table of contents and a table of authorities. And then you just tell them exactly what you expect to find: an introduction, procedural history, statement of undisputed facts, so on and so forth, all the way through the signature block and the certificate of service. And if you have a standardized way that you like certificates of service to be done, then make sure that you express that as well. That's really important. Here you have a slightly shorter motion, a discovery dispute motion. You're going to see there's no table of authorities, but what it does have, for example, is certificate of conferral. Some briefs need a certificate of conferral, so you want to make sure that's in there. Notice of hearing, that's fine. I'm going to have a caption, a title, and then I'm going to have the notice language, and I'm going to tell them this is what it needs to include. And then I want to have signature block, and then I want a certificate of service. And then for discoveries requests, I will tell them these are the standard definitions I'm looking for, and these are the standard instructions I'm looking for. And I will have those somewhere so they can just copy paste and use them moving forward. Don't reinvent the wheel, and certainly don't ask people around you to reinvent the wheel. Okay, that was a lot of information. That was a lot to digest. I'll see you on the next video.